Now we are going to discuss a experiment to understand properly the centrifugal force and centripetal force. This is a merry-go-round and a ball is tied to one end of a string and other end which is tied to the center of the merry-go-round, and initially the platform is stationary. Now it starts rotating. Okay, now what happened? There are two observers. Here is observer 1 and here is observer 2. Observer 1 is rest at a ground and observer 2 is on the merry-go-round. Okay, so observer 2 is in rotating frame and observer 1 is at ground, that means rest frame. Now when the merry-go-round starts rotating, what happened? The observer 1 observed that the ball or the stone rotates in a circular path, but observer 2 observed that the ball is stationary to him. Why? Because when the ball moves from P point to P dash point, the rotating observer also moves from A to A dash point. Okay, so the observer 2 and the ball continuously moving together with the same angular speed, so the ball remains stationary to the rotating observer. Now how can we explain the observation of observer 1? It is very easy. The ball moves in a circular path because the tension of the string which is towards the center of merry-go-round supplied the centripetal force of the circular motion. But to explain the case of observer 2, the ball is stationary but the tension is acting inward direction, that means towards the center. Obviously another force is needed which is outward from the center or away from the center, which can balance this force, because in case of observer 2 the ball is stationary, so if there is any net force, ball cannot be stationary. So we have to assume that there is two force. Number one is tension force and number two is a force away from the center of the circle, which is called centrifugal force. Those two forces are equal and opposite in direction. That is why net force is 0 on the ball. Obviously in case of observer 2, that is the net force on the ball is 0, so so it is stationary. Okay, now move to the second part of the experiment, where I suddenly cut the string of the rotating ball. What happened? Now here is again observer 1 and here is again observer 2. The observer 1 observed that the ball is moving along a straight line when the string is cut. So the ball moves along this straight line. Okay, now what is the observation of observer 2? Observer 2 observed that the ball is always remain in front of him and moving radially away from him. Now observe this. When the ball is at point P, the observer 2 is at point A. When ball is at point P dash, observer 2 is at point A dash. Now when ball is at P double dash point, the observer is at A double dash point. So the observer 2 is also rotated with the circular motion, with a uniform circular motion. That is why the ball P is observed by the observer 2. It is seen that the ball is radially away from him. Okay, that means the centrifugal force acts on that body, but the string is cutted, so there is no opposite force that means tension of the string, to balance that force. That is why the ball is moved towards the centrifugal force, that means outward from the center of the circle. Okay, so that is the explanation of that centrifugal force and centripetal force. Now there is some question from this chapter, you have to solve those questions. Thank you.